88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Weekends, everybody. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Weekends. This is the first ever episode of What to Watch Weekends for 2025, and I'm not here alone. I've got a reoccurring guest host along with me, if you'd like to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Walter. I am the guest host.
Very nice, as I like to call you, Water.
Water.
It's very good to have you back here, Walter. We had you on, I believe,
A couple times last quarter, yeah.
A couple times, and then I got kind of caught up in collaborating with other people. But it's great to have you back on here, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Always fun.
Always very fun. And we've got a very interesting show tonight because it's kind of the biggest What to Watch Weekends episode I've done so far. We have the gloriously large undertaking of talking about all of the Star Wars movies tonight, since I talked about the original trilogy on Wednesday. We have a lot to go through. You know, we got like
all 9 episodes, 10 episodes now?
There are 9 episodes, and then there's the 2 spinoffs and the holiday special.
Yes.
So it's actually 12 movies in the course of 2 hours. I think we can get through it.
Yeah.
I think we can easily get through it. It's just going to be a process of spending only a few minutes per movie and then moving on. I think we can do it. I don't know about, are you confident?
I'm confident.
Very good.
We can speed run it.
Yeah, let's speed run it. Let's, A New Hope movie. The Empire Strikes Back. It's a movie. No. So we should start off with the one that started it all. A New Hope from 1977, available to watch now on Disney+. I'm going to be honest here. I got so tired of repeating the plot summary on Wednesday's show that I was like, I just, why do I need to force myself into the format of talking about the plot summary of every movie before I go into it? This, I'm going to make an exception. I'm just not going to do it. Because if you don't know what the basic plot summary of A New Hope is, you're lying to me, probably, or you just haven't ever watched it before in your life. And even then, would you say that most people who haven't seen it already know what it is about?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an iconic movie that if you're not even vaguely familiar with it, how? Quite legitimately how? So that's my plot explanation. It's just like, how do you not already know it in your head? I'm going to jump into kind of my first sort of critique, or I guess observation, that I had while watching A New Hope, again, for probably the 8th or 15th time in my life, somewhere between those. It's not like I didn't already have this thought, but A New Hope kind of made me realize that, and we were talking about this before the show started, I would wager a guess that sci-fi movies tend to be good when they're not about the accuracy. Sci-fi movies that focus on the action and the progression of a story tend to be a lot better than, I guess, a movie.
Like, can it happen in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were mentioning how, like, you at least appreciated... First off, are you a Star Wars guy?
Not really. I mean, I've seen the original trilogy.
Right.
I've played the Lego Star Wars games.
Yeah, you gotta play the Star Wars games.
And I saw the first one of the Disney movies.
Right.
And I saw the episode 1. That's the one with Jar Jar Binks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen that one.
Yeah. So you're not exactly a super fan.
No.
And did you grow up with the series at all?
A little.
A little. So, but you're not as, I mean, I'm not even a massive fan, but I'd probably be a bigger fan than you. Not saying that like
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a bigger fan than me.
I'm a bigger fan. I've got the more brand loyalty. No, I'm just saying, like, from a factual standpoint, I grew up with it probably a lot more than you did, as it is what it's sounding like. But you were telling me that you at least acknowledge that Star Wars was kind of the big break out of the underground nerd culture. If you could kind of repeat what you said that way.
So I said that Star Wars, I can appreciate how it was like revolutionary in a way for like making nerdy culture like more mainstream.
Yeah.
And making sci-fi stuff more mainstream.
Yeah.
Instead of like sci-fi had the stigma before Star Wars that, oh, this is what weirdos who live in the basement are fans of. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, yeah. And now it's like, no, sci-fi is just kind of like about a setting and a way we can kind of introduce new crazy creature characters, but still be incredibly friendly to all audiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the original Star Wars heavily. Basically, everyone went and saw it because of all the cool lasers, mainly.
Yep.
But it is right. You are right in saying that it was also just like, it destigmatized nerds at least a little bit. It may not be the full culprit, but it definitely was a massive push in that direction for sure. And at the end of the day, I'd say the original Star Wars is probably one of the best pure entertainment movies I've seen in a very long time. Or at least as in like the best at just pure entertainment, right?
Yeah.
It's really good at just kind of throwing you in, not worrying about it working all the time, but about it being fun all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a heavy strength that it carries, which is what makes it hold up so well so many years later. What are you laughing?
Oh, I was gonna say it's one of those things you could like pick up and like you could start watching in the morning and then be, oh, it's 5 p.m. already and I watched the 4 episodes. Right.
Like the entire original trilogy.
The entire original trilogy, yeah.
Yeah. I do see what you're saying. Like you can basically, once you get in, you can't really stop. It's kind of this like just really fun ride that you don't want to ever end. And it's so funny that it has that quality when, objectively speaking, I'd say Star Wars is one of the most poked at movie franchises of all time in terms of plot holes.
Yeah.
Right? The original movie specifically has one of the biggest gaping plot holes, which is, do you remember at the beginning where C-3PO and R2-D2 are being launched off into space and the Empire goes, oh, there's an escape pod out in the vacuum of space. Should we shoot at it? No, there's no life forms on board. And they don't shoot at it.
They don't, yeah.
Why did they not shoot at it? Because there's no life forms on board? What kind of excuse is that? A bad one. That's what it is. Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense for them not to shoot at it because it's from the rebel ship. They're trying to find the plans. If the plans are on that pod, and they are on that pod, they should shoot it, and they don't. I don't understand with all of the special edition releases that these movies got, why George Lucas did not remove that little interaction. It all of a sudden would have just completely patched over any question about that specific moment. I don't want to harp on it for too long, so I'm not going to. But you see what I mean? Despite that, it still works.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny how that is just kind of indicative of how there are so many plot holes, and yet people keep coming back to watch the originals so many times. I'll say this. I think that first off, the trash compactor scene is my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's about like, can you cut it out of the rest of the movie and can it stand alone on its own as like a short film, right? And I want you to imagine.
I've never heard it be put that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to visualize that.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, like imagine it just starts as soon as Han falls into the trash compactor.
Yeah.
Like he charges in and then we cut it there and he falls in. We have never met these characters before, ever. We just know that we're in a weird trash compactor on some weird space building and we're dealing with these 2 robots that try to save them. And one of them gets taken underneath by a squid monster with a little telescopic eye. It's a really pivotal scene in the movie because it's like all of a sudden they're the main characters are getting along more so now.
Yeah.
But again, as its own independent thing, I think it could really work. I think it could really work as just its own short film. I'd watch a fan cut. If anybody's made a fan cut
Of just
please,
that, put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, if anybody's done that, please send that to me. I would absolutely watch it. And I would try to look at it from the perspective of nothing about Star Wars exists except this one scene. Would it be good? I think it would. I absolutely think it would. And I think the last thing to say about A New Hope is its soapiness and its low budget feel is kind of unironically enjoyable.
Yeah.
Kind of enhances the experience. A lot of movies they are benefited by feeling low budget, but in a way of like you kind of make fun of them halfway. Despite all the good stuff about it, there's this low budget stuff that I'm more so enjoying because it's silly to look at. This one, it's kind of like, I think the low budget actually adds to it. It gives it more charm than a lot of movies can claim to have.
Yeah. Well, I know if you look at New Hope and compare it to any of the later episodes in the series, say, I don't know, any of them.
Like, we'll throw out an example. Would Return of the Jedi be a good example?
After the original trilogy.
Okay, after the original trilogy.
After the original trilogy,
yeah,
you notice
Phantom Menace.
that like how the budget just like explodes and how it's like less. There's less like personality to it, and more like special effects.
Yeah,
and you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think I do.
Yeah.
I think you're saying like with a bigger budget, they're not limited by their constraints, and it results in a inferior product.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The constraints are what makes this movie work, and I can really get behind that. I think constraints are some of the best things you can give a movie, because then it forces you to be creative within the constraints. Whereas if you have unlimited budget and can do whatever you want, all of a sudden you're going to do everything you want, and it's going to just turn into this hodgepodge of nothing.
Yep.
By doing everything. So yeah, I think that wraps up A New Hope quite nicely. I think we've said some things that people don't tend to point out when talking about this movie, so that's good. That's an achievement.
Yeah.
Let's move on to The Empire Strikes Back. We're good on time so far. Might as well keep that trend going. Again, The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, available to watch now on Disney+. I always have to get that out. If you don't know what the plot summary of The Empire Strikes Back is, the big twist is that Darth Vader is Luke's father. Oh no, a movie that is, at this point, actually 45 years old has been spoiled on a college radio station. Oh no, whatever shall we do? Whoa! Huh? So, you're blinking like you just saw the end of the world there for a second. I get you.
Yeah.
So... what do you think of The Empire Strikes Back?
Well, I was looking up some stuff hour or two ago of what things to talk about, because it's been a while since I've seen them. And it brought me back to a quote from the movie Clerks.
Okay.
Where Dante and, oh my God, the other guy.
Okay.
They were
I haven't seen Clerks yet.
Yes.
But I know.
They were arguing, and they were like, okay, out of the original trilogy, what's your favorite movie, Jedi or Empire? And then Dante's like, obviously Empire, because all this cool stuff happened. Darth Vader gets his hand cut off. Han Solo gets frozen in ice.
Uh-huh.
The Death Star explodes. And then it ends on a sad note. What more would you want? And then he's like, the other guy's like, oh, yeah, well, the other Jedi's got Ewoks.
You know what's so funny about that? I know it's been a long time, but do you understand why that's kind of funny? Because half of everything he just said is wrong. That's the funny part.
That's the point, yeah.
Yeah. Like, Han does get frozen, but it's in carbonite. I'm not going to be like that, but it's not ice.
Yeah.
It's not ice. It's black. Ice is transparent. You can't see through black ice. That's not how that works. And the Death Star blows up in Return of the Jedi and A New Hope. It doesn't blow up in Empire. I will say he hit the nail on the head with it ending on a sad note. And Luke gets his hand cut off, but Vader gets his hand cut off in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I just realized what I did. I broke down the joke, and now it's not funny anymore.
Not funny. Oh.
Oopsies.
Oops.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm very, very sorry. Anyways, moving on. No, that is a really good point, because I've heard a lot of people call this one their favorite of the original trilogy. Personally, I like A New Hope a lot more, because I look at it from the perspective of, if nothing else Star Wars ever existed, which movie would be the best to keep preserved, right? Like if we do a Mandela effect where nothing ever happened with Star Wars, which one would I want to be there in that alternate universe? I think A New Hope holds that over The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Because if The Empire Strikes Back was the first and only of the series, I feel like it is a better made movie. It's a better constructed film. But it also kind of has that on A New Hope because it's compared to A New Hope.
Yeah.
If you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With the hindsight, it's kind of like you only see the improvements and they only really become...
And it's built off of A New Hope.
Yeah. It only becomes meaningful when you compare the two.
Yeah.
Which I think is an important point. I will say, I will still agree that it is a better made movie, especially in comparison to everything that came after it. Empire is the best at managing its main plot and its B plot out of all of the Star Wars movies. Full stop.
Yeah.
Its management of Luke on the swamp planet with little Frank Oz puppet, and that's Yoda, and Han and Leia and C-3PO and Chewbacca in the worm, and then going to different places trying to get away from the Empire. It's a very good balance because there's always that risk of losing the audience's attention when you cut back and forth. This movie is one of the few I've seen that is perfect at maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's been a while, but would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's been a while.
But
yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. I will also admit I didn't watch this as much as Return of the Jedi as a child, because if I'm being completely honest with you, as a kid, I found the moment where Vader goes, "I'm your father," really emotionally distressing as a child.
As a child. Huh.
I mean, what?
Why?
Because Luke is really bruised up and he's got his hand cut off, and then he just starts like wailing. And granted, there are much worse scenes in much heavier movies out there. Like, yes, I'm not going to claim that it's some like extremely dark and horrific scene. It's very tame in comparison to a lot of stuff out there, like a vast majority of stuff. But you got to admit, it's not exactly a happy scene. Yeah. It's about a guy figuring out that his father is the most evil emperor in all the galaxy and just cut off his hand. Like, it's not a happy thing. And I think by extension, that was probably the reason I didn't want to watch it as a kid, because as much as I claim to like having unhappy endings in movies, this one was an unhappy ending, and I just didn't want to always experience an unhappy ending. I don't know. I feel like part of it was just that I liked Jedi more, Return of the Jedi more, or it was just that I just didn't want that unhappy ending. It was one of the two things. And I feel like it was closer to, I just didn't want the unhappy ending. But I will give it credit for having that unhappy ending. It benefits from it, for sure. I will also admit, I never expected... My grandpa just texted in and said, "Farther Vader is Luke Skywalker's dad." Question mark, question mark, question mark. Yes, he is. I know. Big twist. Twist of the century. Oh, no. Oh, no. Thanks, Grandpa. I didn't Are you a fan of Harrison Ford? I feel like
A little.
a little.
Yeah.
Uh, do you know that? Did you know that in that scene where it's like the whole "I love you, I know." Can you imagine Harrison Ford looking just so done with the world for a second? He's like
That's
so incredibly done, and then he says, "I know that you love me." That's what that scene is. I never noticed that, but it's so incredibly funny that it's like we have this weird romance thing, and now you finally admit that you love me as I'm about to possibly die. What's wrong with you? Dang it, Leia. That wraps up Empire quite nicely.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. Not my favorite, but if you like it, it's a good pick. It's a really good pick. If anything, it goes to show that they're very closely matched.
I have a really stupid question, but
Go for it.
Empire's the one where it's like they go to Jabba the Hutt's palace.
No, that is Return of the Jedi,
Okay.
which is what we're going to talk about
Okay.
right now. Glad you asked.
Yes.
Return of the Jedi, 1983, available to now on Disney Plus. It's actually not a stupid question because that led nicely into a very good segue. The first 40 minutes of Return of the Jedi are spent at Jabba's palace, and then they get taken to the Sarlacc pit where there's the big hole in the ground with the mouth and the tentacles. And then after that, they go off to Endor to disable the shield generators for Death Star 2.0. And then they meet the little bears, the little Ewoks.
Yeah. I asked that because I remember being a kid and the little like Jabba the Hutt's pet, the little cat.
Salacious
gremlin.
Crumb, the little monkey dude.
Yeah. Cat gremlin monkey thing.
Yeah.
And I remember that just like creeping me out when I was a kid at his like laugh.
Yeah. He does sound kind of like a hyena mixed with a rat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I don't know, that guy creeping me out as a kid and just hating that.
That's fair. Did you remember the musical number in that movie where they just had this weird creature with long lips start singing at all?
No.
Okay. Because I feel like that would be the thing that would scare you the most because of the enhanced version. They have this like thing called Jedi Rock that sucks. But that is fair. Salacious Crumb, I could see that. I found him funny as a kid, but I could see him being a bit spooky.
Yeah.
Are you looking up something specific?
Oh no, I'm just looking up his picture, and I'm like, yeah, I just hated this guy.
I've heard him called Salacious B. Crumb before. Like he's got a full character backstory. I think he's like Jabba's second in command. Don't quote me on that. But I think he's like Jabba's second in command and was like involved in the criminal empire to some extent. Or he was just the funny little...
Not the one to ask about that, but that sounds really funny.
I think it was either that or it was like he was just Jabba's little pet who had to perform for him daily. Otherwise, he'd die. I think that's the backstory.
He'd get eaten.
Yeah, Jabba would just straight up eat him if he didn't do funny little dances. He was basically a jester, which is why he laughed like that. Makes sense. We've spent 2 minutes talking about Salacious Crumb. I'm not complaining. I'm just mentioning that, throwing that out there for you wonderful people of the listening audience. Speaking of tiny little creatures involved with Return of the Jedi, my big point about the movie is that I think the Ewoks should have been scarier in some way, or they shouldn't have been as stupid.
Yeah.
They're just little teddy bears.
Well,
What?
I don't know. That being something that's, you say, a little teddy bear, it's like really funny in a way to me. Like they're supposed to be like these big, tough, like rebels.
Yeah.
In a way, but you could also just like pick them up and wiggle them, you know?
Yeah. That is a kind of interesting point. That it's kind of the Yoda quote of size doesn't matter in a way, but at the same time, I don't know. I didn't find them all that threatening to the point of like I couldn't see them realistically winning against stormtroopers.
Yeah,
that's my real problem. I've heard the argument that like at night, and you've heard of Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Yeah.
Where they had the Ewok hunting mode?
Yeah.
And people say that's scary. At night, sure, they're tiny and they can get around. but also the movie never happens at night, at least on Endor. And when it's at night, you don't see the Ewoks.
No.
So they're not scary in the movie that they're in and from. And at the same time, if you got to add in the caveat of, since they can dig caves in rocks and at nighttime they are scary, they're not scary. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see, yeah.
With those caveats, it's like that's like saying, oh, I turn into a werewolf at night, but it has to be during a blue moon in March only. And I'm like, then you're not a werewolf, dude. That's not how this works. When writing my notes, I was like, I think it would be funny to have a bunch of Wookiees instead of Ewoks. And then I realized why they didn't do that. Because the Star Wars Holiday special existed, and they tried doing a bunch of new Wookiees.
Did that, and it didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's fair that they didn't go with that. I think they should have just made the Ewoks resemble more bears.
Yeah.
More like actual bears instead
Big
of
grizzly
teddy
bear.
bears.
Well, they already have, I don't know. How would you do that and not have them be like, oh, this is just another Chewbacca, right?
I could see maybe you could have them be six-legged bears. That would be horrifying.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Imagine them being like massive brown bears and grizzly bears and polar bears with six legs.
It's just a regular old grizzly bear.
Yeah, but with like, I don't know, pink eye.
Oh, yeah.
And massive ravenous teeth and wings. Wings to make them a crazy little creature from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then and spider-like eyes.
I've also hyper intelligence.
Yeah.
And they fly.
Yeah. And they use psychic powers. I don't know. I think with that crazy idea, you'd have to do less Ewoks. I think that was my problem. I could see them working in numbers, but even then, with the numbers that they had, I was like, why'd you spend as much budget as you did making all the little costumes when you could have instead piled it together for like one big one? That was my kind of complaint. If you were going to make kind of these crazy creatures that could win, I would say pile them together and make maybe 3 Ewoks, like just a polar bear inspired one, just a black bear, and then just a brown bear.
Yeah.
3 of them. But like flying hyper intelligent 6-legged bears
Would be
terrifying.
Yeah.
And they would be more successful than a bunch, like 50 tiny little teddy bears against the Empire. Could you see them like taking down an ATST, that's 6-legged flying bears? I think they could. And when I say the ATST, I mean the 2-legged walkers things. Those would be more successful against one of those things. That's my argument. I don't know if you're fully agreeing with me or not. Fair. Last thing I want to say about Return of the Jedi before we go into a break. Well, actually, 2 final things. I think the final showdown between Vader and Luke is really good. The only problem I have with it is that, you know, that kind of quote of like, the Emperor going, "Strike me down with your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete." He says that twice in pretty much exactly the same way before Luke actually grabs his lightsaber and starts fighting Vader.
Okay, it's been a while, but
yeah, that's fair. It kind of annoyed me that was what happened, but kind of a nitpick. The other thing I want to say is that, you know how, I mean, I know that you're not exactly familiar, but you are familiar with the special edition problems and how people really don't like them, especially how they made Han not shoot first, which was a stupid decision. Han shot first. If you fight me on it, you're wrong. I'm joking. Yeah. But in my opinion, you're wrong. I'm not joking about it being my opinion. In my opinion, you're wrong if Han didn't shoot first. I like just looking at the camera and pointing at it. It's really fun. But my point is that I actually managed to watch Return of the Jedi, the original version, the non-special edition. Yeah. And I can see why people complain about it, because I'd say the non-special editions are kind of better.
Yeah. I remember this one time, I was pretty young at the time, watching the original version of Empire as a kid with my dad, and him like complaining, but like laughing at how bad the scene where they're on the like speeders
Yeah.
through the forest and
Yeah.
how bad the,
Oh, that
like,
was Return of the Jedi.
Jedi, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Oops.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, and how like bad that scene was, given the effects that were used and given like the time.
Yeah, and I will admit I can see where he's coming from. I remember it being kind of goofy, but it has more charm than the cleaned up version. If I'm being completely honest, I think it just doesn't look better, but it has more charm to it. And charm is something the original trilogy had in droves. Even though it's been a while, I'm sure you can remember all of the charm it had.
Yeah.
Because in comparison, the prequel trilogy lacked charm. I'm just going to be fully honest. It lacked a lot of charm. But we're not going to go into that quite yet. We are going to go into a quick break. And when we come back from that break, we will jump into the prequel trilogy. So stick around for that.
So,
Huh?
I don't know. Last night, I was...
Dude, we're on air.
Oh. Yeah.
88 won the... Sorry.
Yeah. I was going to show you a video from last night, but...
Oh, okay. We'll do that after the...
Yeah.
Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends, everybody. I'm so sorry, Walter. I'm so sorry I interrupted you. You're fine. Breathe in, breathe out. It's completely fine.
So funny that happened.
Yep. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. 88.1 Burg, your movie central, everybody. My name is Nathan, and that was Walter you heard as soon as we came
Hi,
out.
I'm Walter.
Hi. It's all good. Hi. We've had a wonderful fluke here. This is great. So, welcome back to What to Watch Weekends, where we're talking about Star Wars. Swars, as I like to call it. Swars. And last break, we talked about the original trilogy. I could say more. Do I want to say more? No. I want to move on because I've already talked about it on the Wednesday show. Might as well get some new content out there. We are going to be spending this little segment talking about the prequel trilogy. Walter, have you seen the prequel trilogy?
I've only ever seen the first episode of the prequel trilogy.
That's fair. Are you familiar with the memes from the prequel trilogy?
Very familiar with the memes.
Okay.
And,
that's good.
I don't know. A lot of it and how just how it was done just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
What do you mean specifically?
Like, I don't know. I know, pointing to one character specifically from episode 1.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you know the one.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
This Watto.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
No, yes, Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks, I'm aware of all the memes surrounding him and all the, hate he gets.
Yeah.
For just no reason other than it's fun to hate on Jar Jar Binks.
I'll say there is kind of a reason for it. Jar Jar Binks was first introduced in The Phantom Menace, 1999, available to watch now on Disney+. Had to get that information out there first. The reason people hate Jar Jar Binks, I would wager, is partially because he's made to appeal to kids, right? Which people didn't like. They wanted a movie that was for all ages, not for the kids. Not for the little kitty winks. And I think that's fair. But my problem with Jar Jar is that such a stupid, clumsy character is actually plot relevant.
Yeah.
That's my problem. I think Jar Jar could have been there from the beginning for all I care.
Yeah.
And not ever been plot relevant. And I wouldn't have as much of a problem that I do have with him. Because if he's going to be integral to the plot, he has to have some level of competency and can't really accident his way through everything. And he ends up being plot relevant by accidenting his way through everything.
Yeah.
I don't think people should bully the actor who played Jar Jar Binks. Absolutely not. That's unacceptable. But I, on the one hand, am kind of on the Jar Jar hate train just because I don't get his character. I don't get why he's there if he's going to be plot relevant. Because with his current traits, it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. Have I proven the case at least a little bit to you?
Yeah,
or
he's annoying and I hate it and I don't want to see him. So
yeah, okay. So
I don't know, but I understand what you're saying, and I'm just why did they have him such Like, why did I put so much emphasis on Jar Jar Binks other than ooh hee hee, bing bong woohoo guy? I don't know. What does Jar Jar Binks even say?
That's close enough to what he
Bing
does
bong
say.
wahoo.
Yeah, it's very close to what he says.
I'm thinking Super Mario, but
It's so close. It might as well be Bing Bong Whoa. He also talks like a toddler, like blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah.
And we'll get
Yeah.
to it later, but in Attack of the Clones, he's like addressing the Senate, like a massive group of senators, and he says fellow delegates. But instead of saying fellow delegates, you know what he says? Dello delegates. Actually, fully. I had to rewind and double check that. I was like, hey, Dad, he just said Dello Felogets. And he's like, no, he didn't. And the subtitles were turned on. It said Dello Felogets.
Felogets.
Yeah, that's exactly how Jar Jar talks. That's just the way you can
Yeah.
understand Jar Jar talking. I will give you credit. I agree with you in that you're saying you don't understand why that's the only thing that people are focusing on.
Yeah.
Because honestly, there's more problems with the Phantom Menace than just Jar Jar Binks. The entire movie opens up with the taxation of the federal trade route of the planet of Naboo has resulted in an interplanetary blockade, and the ambassadors from the Senate, who are the Jedi, have been sent to the ship hosted by the Viceroy. Are you bored hearing this at all yet, or
Yeah.
do I need to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
My name is Newt Gunray. I am the Viceroy responding to the evil Emperor. Welcome to the Trade Federation ship where we have blocked your communications. It's really boring. And people have like joked into oblivion why it sucks because kids don't want to learn about the taxation stuff. The political intrigue can be interesting in the right context. For it being the first Star Wars movie after Return of the Jedi in 16 years, which is kind of a weird theme that you see with these movies. It tends to be like a decade before the next ones. With that being the newest one in a long time, it was like the way it opens up with just here's political stuff was just so unnecessary. My theory is that the way they could have fixed it is by having... So, again, not super familiar with it, but do you remember the basic plot structure following them going to Tatooine and meeting a young Anakin Skywalker? Do you at least remember that part?
Vaguely, yeah.
Vaguely. Okay, so they go to the desert planet Tatooine, and they go and meet young Anakin. My real issue is that it takes about 30 to 40 minutes to get there. I think it should have started there. I think you should have had Anakin be the main character. One complaint I've heard is that there's no main character to this movie. And that's largely true. Which is, it's like, how did they fail that for a Star Wars movie? But, I mean, they already did. So, might as well go off of what we already have and just kind of tweak it a little bit. Have it open on Tatooine with Anakin on his own, with his mother, and have the ship with the Jedi and the people from Nabob. I call it Naboo or Nabob. Nabob. We have Nabob ship crash land on Tatooine. And we have Watto, the little blue dude with the wings, send out his people to go get the people from the ship, bring them here, bring them to Tatooine, or like to his shop. And we have Anakin talking to them, right?
Right.
So it's kind of about him meeting them, and it's his story progression. It wouldn't be perfect, but I think that would be a better place to start than the taxation of the Trade Federation has led to a blockade of Naboo. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a much stronger start. And that's the real issue with Phantom Menace, is that there was enough there where you could cut it down and have that be the start, right?
Right.
The problem is that they weren't very economical with the stuff that they did put in, and it was just way too unfocused for the first bit. And despite that, it has a good structure for a story. There is an idea of a story in there somewhere, buried deep and way later in the movie than it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that's my overall problem with Phantom Menace. And this was a movie I used to love as a kid, keep in mind. So I'm going in pretty hard
I've
on
only
it.
ever seen this movie like maybe twice.
Right.
Last time I watched it, I think I wasn't even in high school yet. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So I suppose we can't really talk about too much in-depth stuff, but
Yeah.
but it's completely fine. We can easily kind of skip over some of my other stuff.
Gonna say like I know like the plot of like the next movies
Yeah.
like by osmosis because I played Lego Star Wars on the Wii
Yeah, that's fair.
and that's Star Wars, so
Yeah. I mean, it follows the basic premise.
it's the same thing.
I think
Yeah.
if I'm being completely honest with you, I think half the reason I loved Phantom Menace as a kid is just because my brother and I would play the first level of Lego Star Wars over and over again. And it's like, set in the ship with the little doors and the little silver C-3PO.
Yeah.
With the dude with the green lightsaber and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like, I liked Qui-Gon Jinn as a Lego character, even though it's just a Lego Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
But like, I really liked Lego Star Wars, the video game, which I think is why I liked Phantom Menace so much, which I'm sure that kind of makes more sense when I say it out loud, honestly. It kind of recontextualizes the entire childhood. Let's see here. Is the Phantom Menace the worst one? No. Anybody who says that is I think people were harder on it than they should have been. I think it was just a very strange outcry thing. Going back to what you were saying, you don't get why they kind of hated on Jar Jar. He definitely deserved it, but not as much as he got. I think this movie is not good, but it tried a lot more new things than the
It tried a lot to like be different from the original trilogy to the point where it just kind of did its own thing.
Yeah, and it didn't really work.
Yeah.
But at least tried. And I think that's the problem with the sequels is that they don't try hard enough to be their own thing. So at least it has that. In conclusion about the Phantom Menace, Gunga Din. Moving on. I don't know why I have that in my notes. I just wanted to say Gunga Din. We now have Attack of the Clones from 2002, which is available to watch on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So
This one I've never seen.
oh, fair enough. You don't really need to.
Yeah.
It's kind of boring.
Is it this one with General Grievous in it?
No, that's the
The
next
next one. Yeah.
This one is the one that has Jango Fett and the Rain Planet,
Okay.
the raining planet with like the big platforms and stuff, and then it has the
Yeah, you lost me.
okay. It's got the gladiator arena
Okay.
with the big praying mantis thingy and the big rhino. Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea. You're
Okay, let's see.
not speaking English to me.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can mention anything crazier about this movie to make you even more confused. Now I consider this a challenge. Let's see here. How much further can we go? What else happens in Attack of the Clones? Oh, it's the movie where where Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman fall in love really badly. And Hayden Christensen falls off a horse and nearly dies, but it's fine. He doesn't. And this movie has the best scene in all of Star Wars. You ready for it? I'm gonna fully explain to you the best ever scene in this movie. So for the basic plot summary, we have it's about Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah.
So it's about finding the clones. And we have Anakin and Padme, Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, respectively, as they go have a dumb rom-com in New Zealand. When they get to Nabob, as I call it, Bob, Boo,
Boo.
Fob. They get to Nabob, right? And as they're stepping off a boat to get into the little palace that they're going to hide away in so that Padme doesn't get assassinated. That is actually part of the plot. Padme is looking out over the ocean and she goes, "Here's my little childhood backstory. And here's how sand was involved." Anakin's response, "I don't like sand." but I like how smooth your back is. Anakin and Padme proceed to kiss on the lips. Padme. That was a mistake. And scene. Romance writing at its finest, ladies and germs. Yeah. Guaranteed to make you laugh uncontrollably for the next 5 minutes. Best scene. I'm sure you're familiar with that,
yes.
At least.
I'm familiar with the meme, the I hate sand.
It's coarse and it's rough. And it gets there. Yeah. He's so whiny. It doesn't get any better. There's like one line that's good between the two of them during the entire movie, and the rest of the time he's just whiny, annoying, or just going against the rules for no other reason than he can. Mm-hmm. It's so incredibly stupid. At least the best part of the movie was when Anakin's mother died. And by that, I mean it was the best executed moment. Not that it was fun watching his mother die. It wasn't good to watch a woman die. It was just a well-done scene in comparison to the rest of the movie that was boring. What? You look like... What?
Oh, no, nothing.
Oh, fair enough. It's kind of the most boring of the three, if I'm being completely honest. It just doesn't have much going for it. And the things it does have going for it would be the sound design and the little moments here and there in this entire other heap of just kind of boring or really bad nonsense. But it's not so boring that it's like to the point where it's worse than a bad movie, if that makes sense, right? A boring movie is so much worse than a bad movie because you can't talk about it. This movie at least has some things that you can really go off about. Like the sand scene.
The sand scene.
That one specifically. It's so dumb. I can't fault anyone for finding a problem with that scene. So let's take a think here. I think we are going to go to break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we will jump into Revenge of the Sith. Then we'll take another quick break, and then we'll talk about the sequels, stuff like that. I think we can kind of, I guess, jump around a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we come back, we will talk about Revenge of the Sith and then close out the prequels and then jump into the sequels. So stick around after the break for that. Hello there. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends, 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. My name is Nathan, and I'm joined by my guest co-host.
Hello there. Yes, I had to say it as well.
Yes, you did. I cannot rob you of that right whatsoever. Welcome, Walter. We are in our second hour of the show. It's been going so good so far.
Yeah.
Going so good so far. Going. Gone.
Yeah.
Going to the moon. Speaking of going to the moon, we've been talking about Star Wars this entire show so far, and we're gonna keep doing that. Because we could talk about Narnia, but I didn't talk about Narnia, so too bad. We're going to talk about Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith from 2005, available to watch now on Disney Plus, is where we left off, which is why we opened up by saying hello there, because of the meme from this movie of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan saying hello there. So, Walter, you haven't seen this movie.
I haven't. I have not.
But you have played through the levels in Lego Star Wars.
I've played through the levels on Lego Star Wars,
right.
So I know the general plot.
Right. I find that interesting because I would say you don't exactly need to watch Attack of the Clones. You could, but you don't have to. I would actually recommend if you liked the original trilogy at all, I would say you should definitely rewatch the original trilogy. At some point. Don't have to. But it's just a recommendation. I would say for anyone who's never seen Revenge of the Sith, but you've seen the other two, and you don't want to watch it because you've heard that the prequels are bad, I would heavily push for giving Revenge of the Sith a shot. I personally really liked it.
Okay.
It has a good problem of the second half being a lot better than the first half. That's one of the main strengths of the movie. It's also just has better acting, better writing overall. And you know how they have a lot of CGI in the first movie specifically,
yeah,
and in the second movie? Like, it was an overdue of CGI, right?
Right.
Way too much of it. All of it looked really bad, especially for being in the early 90s, or late 90s, early 2000s. Revenge of the Sith is the only one out of the three that actually kind of covers up its CGI very nicely. It has this kind of film grain texture over it with a bit better color correction to kind of hide any of the shoddiness of the CGI, which is a really good thing. I don't know if you can like kind of imagine it, but it's a massive jump up, because I watched Attack of the Clones one night. The next night I watched Revenge of the Sith. I'm like, this looks leagues better, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know that like there's a lot of CGI, but I don't mind it in this one specifically because they tried covering it up and actually were successful at it.
Yeah.
So it gets that across at the very least. Oh yeah, I should also go over the plot because this one is not the most well known, and you also wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with the Clone Wars TV show.
Actually, no.
No.
I never. But I know what it is. But
Yes,
yeah.
that's what I meant. That's what I meant. You've heard of the Clone Wars
Yeah.
TV show. This movie is kind of like the justification for the Clone Wars TV show, because at the end of Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars starts, and this movie is basically the first hour is about the end of the Clone Wars, and then the second half is the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars ending, right? Mm-hmm. Do you see that weird time jump there? Very weird time jump. Which kind of justifies the entirety of the Clone Wars TV series, like completely fine. But I think Revenge of the Sith has this interesting dynamic where the first two movies aren't exactly perfectly acted. They're not very well written. They don't really have a good progression with a main character, or at least the first movie, Padawan. I almost called it Padawan Menace because there was a Lego movie, Star Wars, that I always used to watch called The Padawan Menace. I don't know if you've heard of that one at all.
I don't know what that one is.
I grew up with it. It's this really funny thing where Lego Han and Lego Yoda meet, but Han is like a small child, and it's this like weird romp throughout the Star Wars universe, but all animated with Lego. This was like my childhood. You're looking at me like I'm speaking an alien language.
Yeah, I don't.
Am I speaking a Star Wars language to you? I'm speaking like Jabba Duga Lego Star Wars.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I'll say this about Revenge of the Sith so we can move on, so we can get to the sequels and we can actually get through this.
Yeah.
I sympathize with Anakin the most. I can see why he turned to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
That's the core component.
I mean, I would be pretty upset if I got thrown in lava, to be honest.
Yeah. But that's not even the main thing. Like that is pretty, that's kind of like the last, what's the term? It's like straw that broke the camel's back, but not exactly that one.
His tipping point.
Yeah, tipping point is a good way of putting it. It's kind of the tipping point. It's not exactly, he's already turned to Darth Vader by that point, but it just kind of completes it because then he gets the suit. Long before that, people like Obi-Wan and the Jedi Council are asking him to spy on Palpatine, who is, oh no, big shocker twist. He's the evil emperor this entire time. Whoa, no way. You could never see it coming, especially because they used the same actor for both Palpatine and Sidious. No way. Whoa, such a spoiler. Anyways, I think it was just interesting to see that both the Jedi and Obi-Wan and the people close to him were asking him to spy on his friend Palpatine, and Palpatine was asking him to spy on the Jedi. Everyone was pulling him in different directions. He was very inwardly conflicted and externally conflicted, not really knowing where he was going, not really feeling like he fit in somewhere in this world that he'd become accustomed to and been taken from his home to be in. And because he'd been taken from it, it ended with his mother dying anyways. And now he's like really obsessed with trying to prevent death. If you're laughing about something.
What? No.
Oh, fair enough. I always forget you sometimes just laugh at stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not anything specific.
No.
No, that's fine. It's just an interesting progression to see a person turn into Darth Vader over the course of the movie. It's not like it doesn't happen all at once. I can definitely say with confidence they didn't rush Vader's full transformation. Now, of course, there is the infamous scene where it's Master Skywalker. There are too many of them. What are we going to do? I don't think people really... Do people really meme on that scene because it's bad? Or do people meme on that scene because it's like, oh, no, this is where things get real? What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Like,
the part...
Is that the one where it's like, oh, they slaughtered him?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, it's where Anakin slaughters a bunch of younglings.
Okay.
Which is canon to the Star Wars universe. That is a factual description of what happened. Yes. That is what I'm talking about. I can't tell if people on the internet are calling it a funny scene because it's stupid, or if they're saying it's like actually kind of dark and a really good turning point. It's so hard with the internet to really know where people's intentions are. I do know for a fact that people like to make fun of the big confrontation between Obi-Wan and Anakin with the whole "I have the high ground" thing, and they use that joke all the time. I'm sure you've seen. There's numerous jokes. It's like,
that.
It's like, Luke, I did not teach you one thing to deal with Vader. Make sure you have the high ground. They do it with like the Alec Guinness voice or something like that. But that's that. Revenge of the Sith, if you don't like it, that's fine. But I think it's honestly really good. And I would recommend it, even over Attack of the Clones. Like, you don't really need to see that one. Revenge of the Sith is actually really good. I'd say it's good. It's not as good as the original trilogy, because nothing can really be as good as the original trilogy. But it's good in its own way. So it gets a thumbs up at the very least. And now we move into stuff that doesn't exactly get a thumbs up from me. Because we are going to be moving into the sequels. The 3 sequels. Oh boy. I've got a bad feeling about this. Do you have a bad feeling about this?
I got
What?
What?
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
I, too, have a bad feeling about this.
Close enough. What?
Don't know the quote, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's completely fine, dude. But
Yeah.
It's all good. So we've got The Force Awakens from 2015, available to watch now on Disney Plus, as the first one. Now, you were telling me. So first off, if you're not familiar with the plot summary of The Force Awakens, imagine A New Hope, and then you replace Luke with this girl named Rey. You throw in an ex-stormtrooper who's a human being, and then Han now becomes the new version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you've seen The Force Awakens. Cool? Cool. And also, there's Palpatine, and he's played by Andy Serkis as a wrinkled old raisin. There we go. Cool. That's the plot. That's all you need to know. That's quite literally all you need to know about the plot.
Yeah.
But now that we've gotten that out of the way, Walter, you were telling me you've seen this movie.
I say I've seen it technically.
Oh, okay.
Because I have a funny story about how Force Awakens Episode 7 has been the first and only movie where I fell asleep at the movie theater. Watching it. Yes.
Okay.
So
context.
For context, it was nothing to do with the movie.
Okay.
It was like finals week in high school, and like I probably didn't sleep for at least a good 2 days before that. So then my mom's like, "Oh, let's go see a movie." And then we watch it, and about like halfway through, I'm out.
Right.
I'm gone. I remember getting to the ending, and then my mom like hitting me, and she's like, "Hey, you fell asleep. It's time to get out of here." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah.
Aw, darn! I slept through the movie. I mean, to be fair, I can see that because it's like the only real light in a movie theater, aside from the exit signs, is the screen.
Yeah.
They like dim the lights. There's a lot of people who have mentioned that it's kind of like if there was no screen, I could imagine falling asleep in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Honestly, both from the perspective of I would want to fall asleep in a movie theater weirdly, because that'd just be a fun kind of experience, like a kind of bragging right thing of like, I'm so into movies that I fell asleep in a movie theater. But in all reality, it's kind of like a nice environment to fall asleep in. Got comfy enough chairs and dark lights, no lights.
Yeah.
It's got like good soundproofing to get rid of all the outside stuff. Very big and open kind of thing. I could see it. That was a completely unrelated topic, but I'm glad I got it out of my system. Yep. So, The Force Awakens, I remember watching it and in the theater and being kind of, I didn't really like the suspense.
Yeah.
Of it. What?
Well, I remember, so Force Awakens, they had this character, I totally don't remember their name, but there was the guy with the curly hair who was like a mechanic or something.
Oh, was he played by Oscar Isaac?
Probably.
There is Poe, the guy who flew the X-Wing.
I am not the one to ask.
Okay.
Anyways, they were like trying to collect gold coins, and then they're like, oh, let me go get my guy. And then there was like, the guy was wearing like what looked like a Daft Punk helmet. And I remember like talking to my sister, and I'm like, oh, I fell asleep. That's the last thing I remember was the guy with the Daft Punk helmet. And my mom was like, what's Daft Punk? My mom and sister were like, what's Daft Punk?
Wait, this is so weird because I feel like I know what you're talking about, but that was from Rise of Skywalker. It's this girl that they meet who has like 2 blasters or something like that.
Okay, then that must be the movie I'm thinking of.
I don't know. I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know which one you saw.
I know it was one of the Disney movies.
Okay.
And
that's all we really
just
need to know.
Mushed together like oatmeal to me.
That's fair. That's completely fair. I can't blame you for that.
Yeah.
What's Daft Punk?
What's Daft Punk? And I'm like, man.
Okay. That's really funnily off topic.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, I'm glad we're getting off topic because I really don't want to talk about the sequels because I don't like them.
No.
They're not all that good.
Yeah. And I haven't seen any of them besides the one I saw.
Yeah. And we don't even know which one that is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Mainly because I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't want to watch them.
That's completely fine. I didn't want to watch them, but I figured I would just to give. I should probably talk about them because I did spend time watching them, taking notes, and I promised I'd talk about them. So we'll go through them, but keep in mind my heart's not going to be in it. I'm so sorry. I'll give it this. Do you remember the little ball robot?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, he sounds like a basketball. He can like float upwards, and he sounds like a basketball every time he hits the ground. It's actually a really good sound design trick because he looks like a basketball.
He looks like a basketball, yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. I will give it this for just ripping off A New Hope. I think it does a good job at that for the first half. The second half is way too focused on making bait for the sequel. And it's also all about finding Luke because he's left and there's like a new empire and there's a new rebellion. Yeah. And it's just kind of like, why are we doing this now? What's the point? But granted, if you're going to go a certain route, just completely remaking A New Hope, you could do a lot worse. And unfortunately, they end up, if I'll say it this way, if they had just remade the original trilogy for the sequels, it would have worked out enough. They didn't end up doing that. I'll at least give Force Awakens the credit of having Harrison Ford in it, because Harrison Ford is great, and we will all miss Harrison Ford when he is gone. And it does have Mark Hamill in there at the very end, and it has Carrie Fisher. All of the side characters, I feel like, shouldn't have been in the movie. Or if they were, they should have been minor characters.
Yeah.
They focused way too much on making them the important ones, which is just kind of feels like a slight to the fans to kind of ruin your old characters for the sake of your new ones. I can see people being annoyed at that. And nowhere is that exemplified better than in The Last Jedi from 2017. Again, available to watch on Disney Plus. I'm going to stop saying that they're available to watch on Disney Plus. All of these are available to watch on Disney Plus because Disney owns Star Wars. And they kind of ground it into the dirt, starting with Last Jedi, in my opinion. Because, so here's how I'm going to describe the plot line. Do you know the main character of the sequel movies at all? It's the girl with the braids.
Yeah.
Her name's Rey. That's yeah. Yeah, that's her name. Her name is Rey. Rey goes and finds Luke on his isolated little planet. And that's part of the plot. And I'm really sad that she went and found Luke. Because after she goes and finds Luke, Luke is revealed to be an old complainy rat.
Yeah, I know the pictures where it's like he's drinking the blue milk.
I hate that part. I've heard an argument that it's not the worst thing ever. It's like, oh, it's not as bad. It's not that bad. It's not like it's you want it to you're how do I say this? Man, I was getting off track there. It's the argument I heard was it's not the worst thing ever. And I can agree with that. But at the same time, you've seen the picture.
Yeah.
It's not like you want to see that. Not like you want to see this classic character drinking I will say it is green milk, which doesn't really change anything.
Well,
if anything, it makes it more disgusting. If I'm being completely honest, it's just green. It's like, I don't want to see Luke drinking green milk, especially when it shows him getting it from the creature. That's not fun to watch. It's not like I understand when you say you don't hate it, but do you like watching that scene? No. My case is still proven that it's just not a fun thing to watch. And I extend that to the entire movie in general, not just because of that scene. It's not really all that fun. It's not enjoyable. It feels... Part of that is because it's trying to do something that none of the other Star Wars movies did, and in a way that doesn't fit, right? Like Phantom Menace, they added in a bunch of crazy creatures, right? Jar Jar Binks was annoying, but at least he was in tradition with adding a new crazy little creature to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about the backstory. There's something to be gained from adding that stuff. At least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right. So Last Jedi's problem is it introduces way too many elements that just didn't fit with Star Wars to me. Like we have a gambling planet where it's like a James Bond casino and I don't care about anything that's going on here. And then they throw in like these faux like inspirational quotes. Like, can you imagine watching a Star Wars movie? Imagine watching a movie about entertainment and fun, right? And they're like, let's fight for the things we love. We need to learn from our mistakes. We should condone capitalism. And let's make sure to finish each other's sentences like a odd little couple. Does that fit Star Wars at all to you?
Not really.
Not really. Not really. That's a good way of describing The Last Jedi. That's kind of all my problems with it. If you're going to do something new, make sure it fits first. And they didn't. They really didn't. They did have Yoda in there for a split second, but he didn't really add anything. There's so many ways I could, again, summarize The Last Jedi, but I think I'll leave it with this. In the movie, you go to the planet where Luke has secluded himself, right? And they bring the Millennium Falcon. R2-D2 is on the Millennium Falcon. Luke goes into the Millennium Falcon and he meets R2 again. It's been like years since the two have seen each other, right?
Right.
And they're talking, well, kind of talking because R2-D2 can't talk in English, but they're communicating and Luke's like, man, it's great to see you. I've missed you. And he's like, I'm not going to come back to the new rebellion. And R2-D2 plays the original message of Leia going, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, right? You know that thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And Luke's response is he looks at R2 and he's like, that was a cheap move. Which, yes, Disney. Yes, it was. funny to me that you have no self-awareness to understand that your entire thing with Star Wars has been one very long, cheap move. That's all I got to say about Last Jedi. Rian Johnson should not have written the movie. Rise of Skywalker from 2019 available to watch on Disney+. At this point, I want to say Disney minus. I'm going to lose my sanity if I subscribe to Disney+. This movie exists.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to tell you anything about the plot. I'm not going to tell you anything about the story. Except for this. It's about the green triangle. That's all you need to know. So, Walter, I want to get you involved in this discussion because you've been quiet so far.
I don't know how to talk about these because I haven't really seen them.
Don't worry. I'll give you something that you can totally get involved in. Are you ready? So, what?
It's nothing. I just thought of something, but I'll tell you later.
Okay. So, as I was saying earlier, a boring movie is a lot worse than a bad movie. Bro, is this something that you could say on the radio or no?
No. I don't know. And that's what I'm trying to think of how do I phrase it in a way that's...
We'll come back to it.
Yes.
We'll come back to it. Hold it for a moment. So I'll briefly skim over it. I was saying that a boring movie is a lot worse than a outright bad movie because there's nothing to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm. Stop looking at me.
Okay.
Okay.
So Okay. And
we're cool.
So bad movies tend to have this problem where they provide no reason at all for things to happen in them, right? Mm-hmm. I consider a bad reason for a thing to happen in a mediocre movie to be better than a boring movie having no reason for stuff to happen. So having an absolute nothing boring movie is a lot worse than bad. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, can you basically pitch a question to me? You're an environmental guy, right?
Yeah.
You're geology focused. Ask me about some fundamental law of nature in some capacity.
Okay. Where does rainwater come from?
It comes from where it comes from because things tend to happen and rain tends to happen. Now, I want you to ask me another question about a fundamental law of nature.
Okay. Why do compasses work?
Because the magnet goblins in the sea eat a bunch of dirt and then throw it back up. Which of those two explanations is better?
Probably the second one.
Exactly. That is my problem with The Rise of Skywalker in a nutshell. Their explanation is the first one. Why are things happening in this movie?
It happens because it happens.
It happens because it happens. Because it's a movie. Because things are supposed to happen in movies. And we considered it a worthwhile endeavor to make a movie where things happen. And it's just like, I'm bored for that reason. If you had given me a bunch of stupid reasons for it, I would have been on board. But there wasn't any reasons whatsoever. And that's what really bothered me. Do you understand what I'm kind of trying to say there? I really wanted to say that because that was just like a really good comparison I could make. And I feel like you kind of understand exactly what I'm saying now.
Yeah.
We're gonna you're really laughing at whatever you're trying to say.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That extends to our audience as well. Don't worry about it. We're going to send you off to a break. And when we come back, we will close out the show by talking about Rogue One, Solo, and the Star Wars Holiday Special, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun with the Star Wars Holiday Special. So stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Weekends, and I'm joined by Walter.
Hi, I'm Walter.
Hello. Welcome back. We've been talking about Star Wars. What is this inflection I'm doing? So we are into the last segment of the show tonight, and I'm excited. We've gone through a lot of stuff. But one thing we didn't go through quite yet was something that Walter remembered during our... Hold on. Let me give just a mild amount of context. We were he didn't know which movie this was from, and I mentioned it's The Last Jedi. Continue.
Yes, so we were talking about Last Jedi before the break, and I had like a severe memory unlock moment of the time when I went to go see it in theater, and my, just say, unique experience seeing it in theater, and the scene of where it's like, what was it? It was like...
So I'll give the context for it. There was the Holdo maneuver scene where this purple-haired lady drives a ship at light speed through the big commander ship.
Yeah, the like big destroyer ship.
Yeah, and it destroys all the other ships behind it. It's this very cool, kind of interesting scene that holds no weight because the character doesn't matter. Continue.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like the longest silent scene in any movie of the last, 20 years or something like that. And would you believe it, watching this in a theater with, 30, 40 other people, middle of this scene, some guy in the back of the theater just goes, ooh, and it just kills us. Everybody in the theater just starts cracking up. And it just kind of ruined the effect for this scene.
Yeah.
And I will forever think of that guy when I think of this scene.
That part of me wonders if it was an intentional. Part of me wonders if it was accidental. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. The true mystery. What on earth was that noise? Why did he make it?
Why?
We'll never know. And if we had an explanation, we certainly can't voice it here on the radio. So we're going to move on to the last three movies that we'll be talking about tonight. I'll keep it brief for the first two, and then we can talk about the last one because it'll be interesting. But first up is Rogue One from 2016, which is available to watch on Disney Divide Sign. For those of you who have never heard of Rogue One, and you haven't heard of it, or have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it because
fair.
I don't care.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So you remember how they had the Death Star plans in Episode 4?
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered how they got the plans?
How?
Well, lucky for you, there's an entire movie dedicated to how they got the Death Star plans. That one little piece of plot.
It must have been the underpaid government contractors. Clerk's joke from what I said earlier.
Fair. You're weirdly not too far off. Rogue One is a story of the daughter of one of the chief engineers on the Death Star figuring out that there is a weak spot in the Death Star and delivering those plans to the rebels. Now, normally this kind of thing would be annoying, especially from Disney, because it's like, why are you guys making this movie, of all things? Did you kick the desk there?
Yeah, I meant to scoot my chair over.
Oh, I gotcha.
I realized the microphone's been blocking my face this whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Oopsies.
This whole time it's been like, but...
fair. So this movie normally shouldn't exist, right? It's such a small thing. Like 2 plot points to go off of is not a lot. Would you believe it that I make an exception for Rogue One because I'm extremely biased? I really like this movie. Despite it not having any right to exist, having no real reason to continue its existence, and feeling like it wouldn't have a lot to fill in the plot with, it surprisingly has a very coherent plot with a lot of characters that actually do something to contribute to the story. It has really good music, despite not being made by John Williams. It's got some really good cinematography, some great characterization, some great acting. It's a really well-rounded movie that only has like 2 complaints on my end. One of them is that the main character, by the name of Jyn Erso, is not really the main character for the first half. And then she becomes a really good main character. Right?
Right.
Then you remember the Grand Moff Tarkin guy from Episode 4?
Yeah.
Like the older looking dude.
The old guy.
Because he was dead by the time they made this movie, they reanimated him in 3D. And it looks very weird.
I remember all the like complaints and all the, what's the word? Like
call outs.
No, like all the criticism the movie got from like reanimating a dead guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah. I can understand that because it doesn't look natural even a little bit. But aside from that, the movie's really good. I would highly recommend Rogue One. Again, biased, but it really comes down to it being a different tone than most of the other Star Wars movies. Like there's something significant when there isn't even like an opening text scroll.
Yeah.
Right? It just says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then there's just a poof.
And then it just starts.
It starts right there. That right there is just a big stylistic departure. There's even like a play on the classic line. I've got a bad feeling about this. It's like, I've got a bad feeling about quiet. Shut up. We don't want to hear it. There's a lot to it. And I know you probably won't watch it, so I'll just say it right now. There's a strange commitment to the idea of having all of your main characters die in a movie. That's kind of frustrating, but also emotionally impactful for sure.
Yeah.
Like, if you care about the characters, it can kind of hit hard. And I ended up caring about a vast majority of the characters. It's a very desperate kind of rush to get the plans. It's almost like, how did they manage this? It's a good movie overall.
Yeah.
And I remember it just being so different from Force Awakens and being so much better than everything that we ended up watching. Like, it became kind of a tradition to go watch these movies in the theaters when they came out, because they would come out around Christmas time, and we were down in Oregon with my grandparents, and we'd go and watch them, and it'd be like, hey, let's go see The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker and Rogue One. And I remember Rogue One being the one that we all really liked, and it sticks out for that reason.
Yeah.
I give Rogue One a lot more credit than it may deserve, but I really like it. You look like you were about to say something.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say you give it more credit than it deserves.
Yeah, and I'll admit it. I'm biased, but part of being a critic is about admitting your biases and saying that, from my perspective, it's a really good movie. Let's see here. Let's move on to Solo, A Star Wars Story. There's not really too much to say, because I remember watching this on, I believe, New Year's Eve of 2019, right before COVID happened. And it's been so long since I then rewatched it. I rewatched it over the break, so it had been about a good 4 years. When I rewatched it, I was like, man, I wonder if this movie's going to be any good. I rewatched it and I'm like, not really. It's kind of boring. It falls off during the second half. It relies way too much on fan service. And for being a story of Han Solo, you'd think it'd be a lot more kind of cynical throughout the entire runtime. It is pretty cynical, but it's a bit too sterilized for it to be any good. Again, Rogue One's whole thing is like being a bit darker, a bit more committal to its overall tone. I feel like Solo needed that darker tone more all throughout the movie, because during the first act, it's really good. Then it just kind of loses steam gradually over time. I will say, what's the main key component of Han Solo, the character?
Well, that he's...
I
don't know. I'm drawing a blank here, but I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to say it.
Oh, I'm not talking about character dynamics.
Yeah.
Think about it from what makes people remember Han Solo.
In a way, he kind of is Star Wars, and how.
I think you're being a bit too specific, and I'm not being specific enough to tell you to be general. I'm getting at the fact that he's played by Harrison Ford.
Well, that.
Yeah.
He's
exactly.
Harrison Ford.
Exactly. There we go. Like, people associate Han Solo with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Full stop. So when they make a movie about a younger Han Solo, there's obviously going to be pushback from people who like Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and they're like, why isn't he Han Solo anymore? I mean, would you be in that camp at all?
I'd be kind of upset.
I can say at least this. You're probably never going to watch it, and I wouldn't recommend
Yeah.
it. I would recommend Rise of Skywalker over this movie. But at the very least, they did do a good job of casting a young Harrison Ford. I think they did. It wasn't an actual young Harrison Ford, but the actor they picked, I was like, that is Han Solo. It's not as good as Harrison Ford, but it was about as good as they could possibly get it. So they get a thumbs up for that at least, which I guess is something to at least mention.
Yeah.
I want to hear your experience with the last movie that we'll talk about, but I want to wrap up my entire thoughts on the more official Star Wars series so far. The original trilogy is kind of a really good story for a college student because we've got A New Hope that's about leaving your comfort zone, leaving home, entering into this brave new world.
Yeah. Well, I can say like every English professor has one of these posters up on their wall of like the circle of the hero's journey and the arrows.
Yeah.
And it just follows that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, you're right. It does just follow that. But when I'm talking about under the hood.
Yeah.
A New Hope is about leaving home. The Empire Strikes Back is about dealing with betrayal and realizing that the world is not all it's cracked up to be. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in the broad terms of there being multiple worlds. I know there's multiple planets, but I'm talking about, in general, Star Wars just as a contained galaxy. So The Empire Strikes Back is about learning that the world isn't all it's cracked up to be, and you don't always win. Return of the Jedi, it's kind of in the name, is about returning home, learning that things haven't changed because you left, but some things have. And it's not all because you left. And then you go back out into the world and you face it down. The original trilogy is the only one that I can say with certainty has that deep of a message to it. And even then, that's not extremely deep. It's just kind of the thing you learn when you go through college. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it resonates with you. So it's got that going for it. The prequel trilogy is like watching somebody have a fever dream with CGI and only really figuring it out near the last 2 hours of that fever dream. But at least they figure it out eventually. The sequels, again, are just a long string of things happening because these are movies and things need to happen in them. So that's great. And then Rogue One is my personal bias, my personal favorite, and the hidden gem I will always go to bat for. Whereas Solo was just, if I had forgot, when I get to the end of the movie and say that a movie is forgettable, that means it's forgettable. It doesn't really have too much to talk about. I could talk about it, but I don't really want to. It just wasn't really worth my time. So that's what I've got to say. But we're not done quite yet because there's no show after this. We don't have to end anytime soon. Well, soon-ish. But we have enough time to talk about the wonderfully infamous Star Wars Holiday Special from 1978, which is not available to watch on Disney+. Only a small snippet of it, a 10-minute sequence that is all 2D animated, is available on Disney+.
Yeah.
The entire Holiday Special is available on YouTube, or... Well, where is it else? Where else have you seen this, Walter?
I have it on DVD.
Now, Walter, why do you have the Star Wars Holiday Special on DVD?
I have it on DVD because somebody gave it to me as a gift one year for Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Here's the Star Wars Christmas.
Worst Star Wars movie of all of them.
It's not even the worst movie. It's like objectively considered the worst Star Wars media of all. It's like in comparison to TV shows, books, comics, everything.
It's come to my realization that I've probably seen this movie more than I have seen all the other Star Wars movies combined.
I'm not disappointed. I'm just not surprised.
Yeah. Anyways, it's become a tradition of my family to watch this movie during Christmas time and just complain about how awful it is every time.
Yeah, I could see that. Do you even remember the plot of the thing?
Chewbacca comes home from the war
Uh-huh.
and he's
Yeah.
trying to plan Christmas with his family.
Uh-huh. And then it doesn't work.
And then I don't know. He just doesn't have a Christmas because stormtroopers come and steal all their presents and something like that.
And then they all gather outside around their Wookiee houses and sing Dahu Doris.
Yes, I know Chewbacca's son is named Lumpy.
Yes, I'm aware.
Lumpy. Yeah, my
Lumpy.
cat's named Lumpy, but not because of this.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
I could see
That
it
would make
being
sense.
a thing.
Yes.
But this
Yeah.
is like infamous. I wanted to watch it.
I don't know. What else is there to talk about this movie? I know there's like the holodisc player thing.
We are not talking about that anymore. That is
Yes.
not appropriate for the radio
But
at all.
there was the scene where it's like Jefferson Starship, the
Yeah.
band, they had like a holographic playing of them,
Uh-huh.
but it was like recorded bad. Like the music was recorded, like think of it was recorded at the end of a hallway in a different room than the band was playing in.
Okay.
So it just sounded really bad. That's all I can say.
And that's fair.
Yeah. And the Wookiee characters were annoying.
Yeah. And they just grunted around with no English translation.
No,
It's just this long slog of a movie.
it's an awful movie and you shouldn't watch it.
Fair enough.
But I've probably seen it. I don't want to admit how many times, but more than twice.
That is unfortunate.
Yes.
And yet you still don't really remember a lot of it, do you?
Not really.
Did you watch it like this last Christmas?
I did.
And you don't remember
I
it?
watched it like not even a month ago, so
And you still don't
I
remember
still
a
don't
lot
really
of it?
remember it.
You've blocked it from your mind.
Yeah.
That's kind that
Yeah. There's a lot of just how just awful it was.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen reviews on it. I will say there was the animated sequence that I did watch today,
Yeah.
and that was okay, but it felt like it was only good because people were suffering through the holiday special, and they were just like, this is all awful. But then they get to that and they're like, this is really good. But it's only by comparison. I'll be honest, it felt a bit awkward and a bit weird. If it didn't have Boba Fett in it and his first incarnation as Boba Fett, it wouldn't have been all that good. Boba Fett kind of held up that part. And that's what people tend to kind of point out as like the one redeeming factor, if anything, is that it's the first appearance of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not a Boba Fett fanboy as much as other people are. I like him. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not a Boba Fett fanboy. Don't come after me, please. The internet, don't come after me. Well, that's all we have. We've talked about all the Star Wars movies that we could. Not perfect, and we spent a lot of time on the original trilogy. But let's be honest here, they're the best ones. I want to thank you for joining me again, Walter. It's been fun.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you. For the listeners, next week, I believe, will be the next episode of What to Watch Weekends. No confirmation because I don't know about the sport event schedule and I haven't looked quite yet, but until further notice, it will be next Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m., where we may have Walter on or we may have another guest. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see where things go. But next Wednesday will also be the next episode of What to Watch Wednesdays, 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg. Please do check out the What to Watch Wednesdays Instagram page at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. Check out the YouTube channel at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. There is a new episode up on the YouTube channel for What to Watch Weekends. It is a Denis Villeneuve episode review, whatever. Walter was in that episode and he's in that video. So if you want to hear more of us talking about this kind of stuff and hear more of his perspective on things, then go check that episode out. Without further ado, that's all we've got. Thank you all for listening in, and I'll be here next time telling you all what to watch. Good night.
See ya.